When you first go to the ESS BIZGrants site, you will be presented with various information about government grants. So what we're going to talk today is what is ESS BIZGrants, how does it work, what type of report do you get to give to your clients, and how you might use those reports to offer a better service to your clients. Incidentally, we believe that the offering of information on government grants is a very important part of offering business advisory services to your clients. Many small businesses are looking for information on government grants, and a large number of them believe that their accountants are the people who should be supplying them with information on government grants. Now, government grants are quite complicated, so what we've tried to do is to prepare a system which doesn't require you as the accountant to become an expert in the individual grants. That's what we're doing, but that the system will guide you through and identify the grants that an individual client might be eligible to apply for, and in that way you can offer a very proactive service to your clients to be offering them information on the grant and assisting them in the grant application. So within the system we do have in the free access area 8 client profile samples that are based on different types of businesses in different parts of Australia, so that you can get an understanding of what the requirements are for data input, primarily into the client profile, and then the type of report that you'll get back so you can discuss it with your clients. Each of our grants is linked to a government department website, which will enable you to identify the application form for that particular grant. And we're going to have a look at the website. Now, your investment as a subscriber to ESS BIZGrants, we have a special price on for this period of time, $495 including GST, will give you 24/7 access for an office. So that's irrespective of the number of authors, 24/7 access for 12 months. So what is ESS BIZGrants? We believe it's a quick and easy solution finding government grants for individual small businesses that assist the accountant to be in control of the situation. So you're not handing over the responsibility for undertaking this very important research role for your client to someone else, or your client's not going off to someone else who may well be a organisation affiliated with another accountancy firm who will then try to encourage your client to switch their services to them. Indeed, a couple of months ago we were contacted by a accountant in a major city who indicated to us that a client who had been a client of that firm for a number of years had come in and indicated that another accountancy firm had been able to secure for them around $66,000 as an export market development grant. The accountant indicated that she was very embarrassed in that she was not aware of the export market development grant, and was now concerned that the client may well be contemplating going to another accounting firm because the organisation that had arranged the grant was in fact associated with another accountancy firm. So by understanding what grants are available and utilising a product like ESS BIZGrants to do that is a great in-house way to avoid that embarrassment. You would obviously know that the client was undertaking exports, and the system would identify that they could have been eligible for an export market development grant, and we'll have a look at those a little bit later on. So ESS BizTools is an organisation which has been developing non-compliance material for accountants for the last 12 years with clients in every state of Australia. That's accountancy firms as clients. We had been developing material on government grants, papers and articles, but David Smith from Smith Inc. 2020 convinced us that we should be preparing a specific program to assist in identifying government grants, and we teamed up with Tim Donovan from Real Advantage Solutions, who wrote the software side of the product to deliver ESS BIZGrants to you. Now, we're using cloud technology, so that means that the data is stored in the cloud. If you don't want to utilize your client's name, you can identify them by a number that you will issue to your particular client. So the basic information that we're looking for in the client profile is listed on the screen there at present. When we analysed the information we were going to require for the grants, we ended up with 800 or 900 odd questions. Now, we obviously realised that we couldn't ask that in every case. So what we've concentrated on is asking 20 questions in the client profile. That has enabled the system to do the initial sort to then determine the grants that might be on offer for that particular client. And obviously it's going to depend on the corporate structure. There's no doubt that government departments favour companies over all other types of structures, but there are some grants that an individual or a partnership or a trust can apply for. Incidentally, the grants that we've included within ESS BIZGrants are only grants for small or medium enterprises. So there are no grants listed for not-for-profits or charities. It's small, medium enterprises that this product is targeted at. We may introduce a system for charities and not-for-profits next year, but at this stage our concentration is on small, medium enterprises. Turnover is important because there are some grants that mention minimum turnovers and others maximum turnovers, and there are some grants that a business with no turnover can in fact apply. Employee numbers are important for some state government grants around Australia. Location can also be very important. There are medical grants for assistance to encourage GPs and specialists to move out of inner metropolitan areas, even to outer metropolitan areas, and there are some very handsome grants if those practitioners will move to remote or very remote locations. But within Enterprise Connect, which is arguably the largest grant on offer to small medium enterprises in Australia on a numeric basis, based on the number of grants issued, there are benefits for businesses based in outer regional areas and remote and very remote areas, and so location can become very important. Expenditure also comes into play, especially within Enterprise Connect. They have this concept of determining eligibility based on a dollar figure, which can either be turnover or expenditure. So for argument's sake, a manufacturing business has to have a turnover or expenditure of $1.5 million. Now the turnover may in fact be virtually nothing, but the company may have spent a significant amount of money in research and development, pilot plant establishment, patent advice, etc., which exceeds $1.5 million, Therefore, that business would meet that type side of the eligibility requirements. There might be other components that it doesn't meet, of course, but expenditure can be a way of gaining access to Enterprise Connect. Exports, I mentioned exports as an example in the introduction. There are Australian government grants for exporters. The most common is the Export Market Development Grant, whereby a client can secure a grant of up to $150,000, subject to the business's turnover being under $50 million. Research and development. I assume you're all familiar with research and development as a rebate. The key thing is to find out as early as possible that your client is undertaking research and development, because they may have to be reorganised and placed into a company structure so as to gain the benefit of the rebate. But research and development can also open up eligibility to other government grants, particularly Commercialisation Australia, which requires a business to have undertaken the development of a new product, process or service. And when we've configured ESS BIZGrants, we made the assumption there that a business that was undertaking research and development expenditure could be a candidate for Commercialisation Australia grants. Types of business are important because the draftsmen of government grants have identified the type of business that they're looking for as being eligible for that particular grant, and the type of industry. And the type of business and type of industry is based on the Australian New Zealand Industrial Classifications, ANZIC, and we refer to those in the system. What we do then within ESS BIZGrants is prepare a list of potential grants that business might be eligible for. You will be required to look at that list and make decisions, and it might be, well, the client's not interested in apprenticeships, he's had some apprentices and not very happy with them. Or it might be that it's obvious that your client is not going to fit that criteria. For argument's sake, manufacturing is a very broad definition, so it can include bread manufacturers, car manufacturers, steel fabricating type businesses, footwear, textile and clothing manufacturers. Now, there are some grants that are exclusively just for clothing, textile, footwear manufacturers, as there are grants only for steel manufacturers or fabricators. So you need to look at what that particular grant is and make a decision for your client. At the end of this process, you will be able to produce a report which will have your name on it and the client's name on it. And the report includes a synopsis of each individual grant so that you can have some information to supply a client. We also have a toolkit within the system for every grant so that you can download a paper or some additional information on a particular grant to make that available to your client. So we will go on to the ESS BIZGrants website now, so if you just bear with me a moment. We'll bring up the website. We have some testimonials there. Testimonials are very important because they're showing you what other people in the industry think about a product. David Smith, the director of Smith Inc. and arguably the leading technology advisor for the Australian accounting industry, has been kind enough to give us a wonderful testimonial. He's made the comment that this tool should reside in every accountant's office. That's what our aim is, so that accountants can be offering this service to all of their clients in a very proactive manner. Within how it works, you can identify individual case studies if you want to have a look at those later. But we'll go straight into the system now, and I'll just find where we are to get going. Now I've already logged in, and we'll go into a client profile. To give you an idea of the what a blank client profile looks like, this is one. So you'd insert the client's name or reference number if you want to not disclose the name of your client into a cloud technology. You need to identify the structure that the client is using. We talked about exports. Does the business import? Because there's some special grants there for businesses who are importing. So they're the type of questions. Be very careful with the one about financial vulnerability. It's financial vulnerability from a government bureaucrat's point of view. And they're mainly concerned about, are they going to be embarrassed by receiving information, normally via the media, that a business that they've issued a grant to has gone into liquidation or receivership shortly after a grant's been issued. So that if you've got some concerns about that the business has got debtors days outstanding of 60 days, that's not a reason in itself for identifying the business has got financial vulnerability. Because if you tick yes to that question, ESS BIZGrants will not be offering any grants for your consideration for that client, because you won't be able to satisfy the government department's questionnaire requirements. So I'm just going through a whole list of mock businesses we've established over the period. The most recent one that we've been using is a business I've called Metropolitan Engineering Services. So we'll just go back to the beginning of that. So we put it in as Metropolitan Engineering. We identified it as being a company. They export, they import, 12 employees, been in business for 10 years, 4.5 million turnover. So we've saved that. In the address, I entered what I hope is a fictitious address, 1215 Botany Road, Canterbury. Introduced the postcode. The system identified that location's within a major city of Australia. In the business and industry profile, the choices we had under the Australian and New Zealand industrial classifications were the items that are listed there. So we've selected that they're a manufacturer, and the industries, we had these various industries listed, and we identified they were in the manufacturing industry. Now you could have some businesses that are operating in more than one industry, so you could identify that as a separate industry that they're involved in. If you're uncertain, you can click onto the Australian and New Zealand industrial classifications, which we have a link to, so that you could view the classification and make up your mind. So we've done that, and we're now going to search. Now, we have used this particular mock company for a couple of other demonstrations. So we have already identified there are some grants that would be applicable to this particular business. So at this stage we want to look at the pending grants, because this is what you'd first get when you got onto the site. There are some apprenticeship grants. It's interesting looking at some of the apprenticeship grants, so you just get an idea. So if you click onto any grant, you can read the grant details. You can have a look at what the funding is. We have a grant toolkit. So if you wanted to read the paper on assistance for apprentices, we have a paper there that summarises how the apprenticeship scheme works. But you might decide, no, you don't think your client would be particularly interested in that. And unfortunately, I went too far back there, so just bear with me a moment. My apologies. Go back to where we were, because I wanted to show you a lot of these apprenticeship grants are linked to the National Skills Needs List. So even though this business is a manufacturer, there are a number of classifications in here that could be considered as part of the manufacturing business, like diesel motor mechanic, drainer, oh, not so much drainer, I meant to say carpenter and joiner there. We've got a locksmith, lift mechanic, metal fabricator. But you might have decided, no, you don't think your client would be interested in taking on apprentices. They were whinging last time you talked to them about apprentices. So we might go back and go through some of these other grants. The Bureau of Statistics is there because that information is available. It is available free for most of it. You can hire the Bureau of Statistics to do some work for you, but it's a good idea for a business to get some idea of how these things work. Now, there are a number of clean technology grants. Whether they're all going to survive the government's new policies on the carbon tax remains to be seen, but businesses can apply for clean technology grants at present. This was one of the situations where I mentioned before that because we've classified as manufacturing, you might receive an indication about an industry that is not particularly related to what your client's doing. So we're saying this client's a steel fabricator, so obviously clothing, textile doesn't assist. The continuous improvement programs are part of Enterprise Connect, but you need to have already undertaken some work in the first place. Now, Enterprise Connect, though, has grants for defence industry. So a manufacturer could, in fact, be in the defence industry. So we might just call that up so you can have a look at that and see how the system works. What we have there in grant details is a summary as to how this grant works. They can secure a grant of up to $20,000 on a 50% basis. They also have researchers in business whereby you can hire a university graduate. It doesn't say what age the university graduate has to be, who can assist in implementing strategies within the business. So there's the funding details. One gives you up to $50,000. The other $20,000, both are on a 50-50 basis. The grant toolkit we talked about before, so again you could just click on and go to a paper on that particular industry, and we could answer some additional criteria. So we might answer this just so you can understand. Has the company previously received a business review? Now if you just look at the setup here at present, up here it's saying pending confirmation. Down here it finishes at additional criteria. So has the company previously received, and we'll say no. Now, yes is probably the right answer in 80% of the time, but it's not the right answer all the time. Does the business provider have the capacity to provide defence-specific goods or services in a supply chain, which leads to a Department of Defence, either within Australia or internationally? So if your clients are manufacturing the defence industries, you might tick yes to that. Is the company's revenue expenditure over $1.5 million? We say yes, it's over that. Has the company operated in Australia and lodged business activities statements for the last 3 years? Now I'm going to play around with this a bit. If I answered no to that, the system would immediately tell us that we were ineligible for funding because we've answered we've answered the question incorrectly. If we change the answer back to yes, the system now says that we're eligible for that particular grant because we've answered these questions correctly. We then receive this additional box up here saying apply now. So if we clicked on that, it will give us the URL that if we clicked on that, that would take us to that government department's website, which in this case is Enterprise Connect, so you could view the application form. That does take a little while, so if we now go back to results and we look at potentially eligible, we have this grant we've just been to, Defence Industry, Cities and Regional, Enterprise Connect program. Now we had already, in an earlier webinar late last week, gone through and identified that that same business could have been eligible for some of these other grants that I'm just going through now. So we'd say, okay, let's have a look at what we then get for the client, and this particular client, this business at Canterbury and Sydney. We'd get a grant report, Metropolitan Engineering Services Proprietary Limited. It's been produced by the name of your accountancy firm, not ESS BizTools. So it's the registered user, his name comes up there, and it then gives a brief synopsis of the particular grant. So here's the one we had a detailed look at, the defence industry. It's applicable to cities and regional Australia. It's summarising what that grant's all about, how much. It also summarises the other grants that I'd previously entered into the system so you could see how they worked. Early stage commercialisation grants, Commercialisation Australia. It's a big grant. You can get up to $2 million on a 50% basis. The Export Market Development Grant, because this business was exporting, and as long as they spend in excess of $20,000 on eligible research, on eligible export activities, they are able to claim 50% of that expenditure. The paper includes full details of the various categories that expenditure can be claimed under. This business, we also said, could have applied for Enterprise Connect as a manufacturing organisation. You can only apply for Enterprise Connect under one classification, so that's allowing the choice to be made by the client. The business had a turnover of under $20 million. It was a company. They were undertaking research and development, so they'd be entitled to register for the R&D tax incentive. Just remember that they have to register with Oz Industry by the 30th of April in the following year, which the paper's got to be updated, which would now say 30th of April 2014 for expenditure that was undertaken in the year that's just finished. And we had some specialist advice and skills and knowledge under Commercialisation Australia, which they might have been able to apply for also for a business plan. And because they were an importer, if they are importing product and going to export some of those products within 12 months, they can apply for exemption from the upfront customs fees and GST. And that's got a great cash flow benefit for many businesses. So that's how the system works. There is a disclaimer at the bottom of each page of the report, which basically says that you're not guaranteeing to the applicant that they're going to be eligible for a grant, because it does depend on them having to submit an application to a government department, and there could be reasons why they're not going to be accepted by the government department themselves. So I don't see that we've got any questions. If you do have any questions on how ESS BizGrants operates, please send us an email at peter@essbiztools.com.au, and we'll get back to you and answer your questions. We would invite each of you to become subscriber members of ESS BizGrants. If you wish to subscribe, please go to the ESS BIZGrants website, www.essbizgrants.com.au, and go to the subscription area, enter your details, complete the payment details, and within 24 hours we will issue you your username and password to get access to ESS BIZGrants. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. Have a great day. Goodbye.